Hello all, and thanks for tuning in again to my quick little recap here from Chattanooga 70.3 this past weekend. Unfortunately, you have to bear with the selfie style video here as Gerard wasn't able to make it out to Chattanooga this time around, but hopefully we'll be able to get him at the next race or two to keep the videos rolling like we have been in the past. I do have to thank Ironman for giving me access to some of the videos and content that they got throughout the day, so always appreciate it there. So on to the race. It's hard to be upset anytime that you come away with a podium at a championship race, and this one was the 70.3 North American Championships. So overall, I'm happy to come away with second. There was a lot of things that went really well, a couple things that didn't, and yeah, so let's, I guess, get right to it. My bridge in between St. George, Ironman St. George, and this race was okay. I kept thinking that the body would come around, and overall I was feeling pretty good. Unfortunately, the quads were just a little bit tender the entire time. I didn't run as much as I would have liked. Not that I was worried about fitness. I just like to try to keep things a little bit sharp. I did do quite a few runs on the lever and then one real run outside, and things were fine. The quads were definitely a little bit tender all the way up through. I kept thinking they would come around, and when I did my 3-mile run on Saturday, the day before the race, I had to come to the realization that they didn't come around. So they were a little bit tender leading into the race, but that was all right. Everything else was feeling pretty good going into the race day. So once we got to the race, the swim got off to a really good start. It's a little bit of a long swim, but obviously all down current and with a big group. I think there were about 50 guys that actually showed up to race. So bigger group typically means a little bit more of the gap fillers. And so this time I was actually able to make the front pack. I believe Ben Canute got off the front about 45 seconds or so. But I was in the next group of 10 or 12 guys. And so I was able to see the lead kayak the entire time, which is always a great sign. Obviously, it's a confidence builder. Making that front pack is something that definitely changes the dynamics of the race for me. And so, yeah, it was definitely a great swim. Happy with how everything went and where I came out of the water. I didn't have the best first couple miles of the race. The first transition went fine. I got onto the bike and struggled getting into my shoes a little bit and just didn't get out as fast as the group did in front of me. If I was all by myself, it would have been just fine. I wouldn't have been upset at all, but that 10 seconds that I may have lost going there meant I lost the group. And it took me over 45 minutes of riding at threshold or just below threshold before I actually was able to get onto the back of the group again once we got out of town. And so I didn't catch back up to the group. In that first 5 minutes, I was about 20 to 30 seconds behind, and it took me nearly 45 minutes of riding on my own and riding really hard in order to catch that group. And once I finally caught the group, I was feeling good. The body was good, maybe had a little bit of an adrenaline rush. So I decided to go straight to the front. One, to make sure everybody was there. Two, to hopefully help bridge the gap, because I could see Ben Canute. They were slowly reeling him in, so I was hoping to kind of do my part and help bridge that a little bit. And then the other part was I wanted to get better position. There was a group of 10 guys, I think, at that point. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't hanging out on the back in case a couple people attacked. It's hard to cover that from the very back. And so I wanted to try to go to the front, do a little work, and then maybe slot back a little bit and sit more in the middle rather than in the back. And I went to the front and I tried to push for about a minute. It was all that I made it up there. And I bonked. I hit a wall hard. And, it was just kind of a factor of riding so hard to get up the group and probably a little bit of adrenaline that I finally caught the group again and was right where I needed to be. And so I went backwards and I went backwards in a hurry, and it was all I could do to hang on the back for the next couple minutes. There was a couple times where I got spit off and I had to bridge back up again. And so it was definitely a fight to just get my wits about me. I took a gel took another shot of Delta G, and I was kind of in a little bit of panic mode and just trying to make sure I did everything I could to not lose everything that I had worked for to get back up. And so for the rest of the ride, I definitely was just doing what I could to try to hang on and tough it out. And there was a couple times where a gap would open up with somebody in front, and I would jump up and try to close that gap. And then, going through the town again, I kind of ended up at the tail end of the group, but I was able to hold on to the group. Overall, happy with the ride. Obviously, I need to work on that first 5 minutes because of how hard it was and what toll that took on me in the long run. It was almost an hour and a half before my heart rate to power was starting to match again, after I kind of blew up when I tried to go to the front of the group. And so definitely a learning experience, but overall a lot of positive things. I talked in my last video, I talked a little bit about some of the, how something was off on the bike and the numbers just weren't lining up with the speeds, and how the drag numbers were off, and things were completely normal again. I was right where I should have been and right where I was back in the Chile race that I did earlier in the year. So whatever was off in St. George was back on here. So, I'm going to still do some testing and still try to figure out what that possibly could have been, but it was definitely encouraging to see that number go back to normal. So I got off onto the run with a group of about 10 guys. Unfortunately, didn't have the best transition. I dropped my watch as I was trying to run out, and so I had to flip around. So I had moved from 10th to 5th in transition, and then kind of moved back to 10th when I flipped around quick and grabbed my watch. It didn't cost me much time at all, but it was just kind of one of those facepalm moments. But yeah, other than that, I was able to get into a rhythm pretty easily, keep moving up steadily. It was a hot day. The humidity was definitely out, and so I wanted to make sure I didn't go too crazy early on. And Jason West went out hard, and I was hoping I'd be able to reel him back in. Hopefully, or I was hoping he kind of went out a little bit too hot. I moved up pretty quickly. I think I moved into third about mile 2, and then moved into second, took second from Andre Lopez around mile 5 or 6. Bummer for him. He definitely went for it. Unfortunately, he ended up having a DNF, but after running in podium position till about the 10th or 11th mile of the day. So definitely a gutsy race for him, and unfortunately, he just didn't get a result to show for it. Going up the hills, I was able to chew into Jason's lead a little bit for the most part on the flat, so it looked like we were about staying even, and then going on the downhills was where I was losing it, and that's usually where I kind of excel with my stride, but unfortunately, I just wasn't able to open up the stride. The quads were definitely pretty tender, and so I was putting on the brakes most of the time on the downhills, a lot more than I normally would be, and that's where I was bleeding a lot of the time to Jason. Overall, it's not a easy run course, and so to even go sub 110. With a little bit of fatigue in the legs is still, something that I can't be too upset about. Jason had a great day, and it would have taken a perfect day for me to be able to fight with him for the win. I definitely would have loved to be able to do that. Maybe I could have if I was a little fresher, but like I said, I'm sure he maybe could have found a gear as well. So hats off to him. He had a great day, and overall, I'm satisfied with the day. I got a lot out of it. And coming away with finally getting the qualification to 70.3 Worlds, and kind of putting another well-executed race for the most part in my hat, and a little bit more positive experiences in Chattanooga. So what's next? As of now, as long as things go on track, my body's feeling good. I'm in a good spot physically and mentally, so I think I'm going to go ahead and race in Des Moines. Then I'll take a break and then prep for Canada and hopefully the Collins Cup, and then the US Open, then Kona. That's kind of what the next block is going to look like. But yeah, I will definitely, as long as things keep on track, be racing Des Moines, and then I'll take a little bit of a break and then start prepping for the second half of the season. Des Moines is a race that, after living in Iowa for quite a long time, I definitely want to be on that start line for personal reasons, but also, at this point, I'm really close to the top 4 for the Collins Cup standings, and one more good result might be enough to bring me up there. And so I'd feel much more comfortable if I can push myself into the top 4 rather than hoping for a captain's pick sitting 5th or 6th. So the Americans are racing really well right now, and so I have to have at least one more good result to hopefully bring myself back into the top 4. And so, yeah, I think that Des Moines is going to be a good course for me, and so that's a good opportunity for me to kind of shore up my position and hopefully secure a auto bid for the Collins Cup instead of having to hope I get selected. So that's the plan. Thanks very much for tuning in and following along, and we'll see you on the build up to Des Moines.